Hi all, thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to paint this old hall at a village called Haughton, which is just a few miles from where I live in Staffordshire. This is the reference photo. I inserted it into the canvas and then opened a new layer on top of that, and then I traced over the outlines to give me a framework from which I can start the painting. After doing the outline, the next thing I did was do the blue sky and put some clouds in it, and then I set about doing the trees behind that, so that I'm working from the back of the painting to the front, so that I can keep doing subsequent layers one on top of the other. The branches were drawn with a inking brush, the fine tip, and the actual leaves you can see are done with a stamp brush. I've got several stamp brushes of leaves, and you can make them various sizes. You can tap them onto the painting in any colour, and I find them very useful for building up foliage on trees. Once that was done, I decided to have a go at the roof. I picked a base colour to go underneath, and then I put some lines in to try and indicate tiles, and these will get blurred in a little minute, so they don't stick out quite so bad once there's some more colour on there. After I'd put in the lines to indicate the tiles, I used the grunge brush from the textured range to put in some other colours. I used tones that are basically either side of the base tone that I put on, so a little bit lighter and a little bit darker, and that helped to fade the lines of the tiles as well. What I did was set about the chimneys, and I did that again. You'll be not surprised to know that I did it with a stamp brush. I've got two or three stamp brushes with bricks on them, and I find these invaluable for doing bricks very quickly. By the way, this is a digital sketch. It's not supposed to be a fantastic painting. I'm doing it for a book that I'm doing. I've decided to do my life in paintings, so I'm following the places where I've lived, and I'm doing various paintings of various locations. The reason I'm doing it is to just give me something I can just turn to very easily when I'm trying to think of something to paint, because if you're an artist, you'll know sometimes you're sitting there and you've got painter's block and you don't know what to paint. So by doing these quick sketches, it's given me something to turn to when I've got nothing else on the go. This is in fact the second picture of a building that I've done on Procreate, so it's a bit of a learning curve for me, and I have to say I'm quite enjoying it. It's a bit of a departure from my normal birds, butterflies and flowers. Anyhow, you can see now that I'm having a go at the other roof. It's slightly tiled a different colour, but I use the same method. Put a base colour in first, then put some lines in to indicate tiles, and then using the grunge brush from the textured range, I started putting in some other colours, some lighter colours of the grey and some darker colours, and I mixed in some other colours on it as well, because this side of the building actually faces northeast, so it had lichens and bits of moss and all sorts growing on it, so it was quite a colourful bit of roof. So here you can see all the colours are going into it now, and it takes away the emphasis off those lines, like I said before. The lighter patches help to then bring it to life a little bit. Once I was happy with the colour of the roof and the tiles, the next thing to do was start on the gable end, and here you can see I'm putting the dark painting and the pinnacles on the top of the roof. And then basically I tidy up the lines that I first put on when I did the tracing. Some of them needed to be thicker, finished off here and there, and then I started putting the windows in, various squares, little bits of glass You'll actually find later on in the painting that I actually changed that top window because I found a more realistic way of doing the glass. But for now you can see how I've gone about it. And down the side of the building here you can see I've redone all the woodwork, all the black lines to tidy them up a little bit and make them look something like proper. Work my way across the building from left to right, filling in the windows and the bits of black woodwork as I go. In actual fact, you'll find in a second, this is where I decide I've got a better way of doing the windows. So I revisit the two windows that I've already done in, the one at the top and the one below it. I think it looks a bit more realistic than it did before. So now you can see I'm doing pretty well with the building. I'm putting the pieces of wood in quite quick, the dark bits, and I'm running along the bottom, and very soon that'll be it. The building will be done. I've even put some drop shadows under the left hand gable and under the eave on the right hand side of the building, which all helps to give it a bit of an illusion of depth. The thing I do is get on with some of the brickwork. Again, it's done with a stamp brush. It doesn't matter if it goes over the edges because I can soon rub that out. So we use slightly bigger brick stamp brush than the one before, one on top of the other, and a row of grey across the top for the coping stones. You can see now I'm putting bricks in across the front, stamping them in, using various hues of the same colour. And then I put in the coping stone across the top, line underneath to give it some shadow, and it's then time to get on with the bushes. I started off trying to do it with a stamp brush, but in this instance it wasn't a lot of use. So you can see on this one on the right hand side I've done a base colour of dark green, and then I've used another green over the top of that, dark at the bottom because that's the underneath and you can't see anything much through there. So it's very dark at the bottom, and that bush now looks reasonably realistic. So I just carried on going along from right to left, and I did it each one the same basic green colour, and then I put a lighter green more towards the left because that's where the sun or the light was coming from, and towards the right I used a dark green and a few specks of very dark green in places to denote gaps. The brush I used was not one of my usual brushes. It's from the painting range and it's called an old brush, and when you first use it, don't use it for the base colour. Use one of the inking range brushes, the fine tip or something like that, to do the base colour. Just do the outline and use the drop tool to fill in the base colour. So you start off with one flat colour because the paintbrush doesn't work with just one colour. But as soon as you start to put on a different tone, you'll see that the paint from below and the new paint you're putting on start to mix together quite painterly. And I quite like this brush. It served me very well in this painting. Right, that's about it. I hope you've enjoyed this painting. If you have, please subscribe, and if you've got any questions, please put them in the comments down below. I'll be pleased to answer anything that I can. I like to keep these paintings simple, and another one will be along shortly. Thank you very much for watching.